Morning all, things are looking up. Well, in some areas. I've got Alexa working. Yep, and do you know what I did? After asking for help from everybody here, there and everywhere, I phoned up Amazon. Spoke to a little girl in the Philippines who talked me through it. So now, unlimited music, clever pointers and everything else. So stand by. Background information from Alexa. Hey, where's it going to end? Poor little Yusuf Maki, 17, stabbed in Ale Barnes by a couple of young residents, apparently. Anyway, there's been a bit of a news blackout on it, so we don't really know what's gone on. But lo and behold, he's a relative of Nazir Afzal, the ex-chief prosecutor for the City of Manchester, who really should hang his head in shame. What does he do? He should be mourning. His parents must be devastated, and you think an uncle would be equally devastated and in mourning. And what does he do? Grabs the headlines everywhere he can. Daily Mail, social media, television. Absolute nonsense. And then, in one of his articles in the Mail, he even claims to have been responsible for solving the Rochdale grooming. Everybody in the area must know it was actually the care worker, Sarah Rowbottom, that sorted it, because the police, her employers, probation officers, everybody weren't interested. And she fought and fought and fought. And in the end, they were arrested and prosecuted. And that must be the only part he ever played in it, reading the file. Nazir Afzal. Should be ashamed of your bloody self. Well, you can't make it up, can you? You get all these calls for tougher sentences for knife crimes and stabbings and what have you, and what do? You get bloody magistrates with this fella, Kyle Davis, second time he's been caught with drugs and knives, and what do? They give him a suspended sentence and he walks out of court laughing. Well, good old British justice. And talking of British justice, we've got Mr. David Stockdale QC, a High Court judge. Who I actually know. You can't believe it, can you? Passing hellos in the City of Manchester. Known him for a few years from my insurance claims days. And last year, he seemed to go berserk with a chap who'd murdered somebody in a Manchester nightclub and sentenced him to 26 years because he's stamping down on knife crime. Well, that was short-lived, wasn't it? Because he's had the killers of the young lad in Ale Barnes before him. And he's bailed the murderer. Well, that's really stamping down on knife crime, isn't it? He's put him back on the streets to stab again. Well, while all this leniency's been doled out, we got the parachute regiment still being victimised for Bloody Sunday. God, because they told a few lies, got together, made up a story. And they've accepted they did, really. But what can you do? You're thrown amongst it. you've got an illegal march, IRA supporters throwing stones at you, you're naturally going to defend yourself. You're taught that. They've just done a documentary on somewhere or other ITV about the para regiment, and all they do through it is say, you're being taught to kill. So what do? They let them loose in Northern Ireland and they kill. It's their fault. Leaders, politicians, everybody. And now these fellas, older than me, can you believe, are being victimised. Disgraceful. Well, Diane Abbott in the news again. Look at her. I know it's not the same without the kissing, but could you kiss that? Crying out loud. Anyway, another story that. Well, she's moaning about being coloured. Being called coloured, actually. Well, she is. She's black. Black's a colour. I'm white. White's a colour. So I'm coloured. And you find out you're coloured when you walk through a black area in Manchester because you end up being the victim of racism. Reversing it. So what? We don't care. We don't bother. We don't go shouting about it. You just agree with it when it happens and everybody's quite happy. But not Diane Abbott. Too busy shagging Jeremy Corbyn. Nay. Baroness Warsi. Accusing the bloody Conservatives of being Islamophobic. Well, you can't get your breath, how dare she? You know, those lads. Whiter than white. You're alright with rent boys and everything else, but they won't be Islamophobic. Goodness gracious me. Well, she got all carried away with herself, but fails to mention the fact that she's been caught fiddling her exes again. Years ago, she got caught employing an illegal immigrant to be a cleaner and paying her sod all. But now she's a baroness, so she was investigated, stayed at a friend's house, fiddled the exes and claimed for staying there. He was disgusted when interviewed. So what happens? She gets investigated and somebody or other says, well, it was only a minor infringement, so she's been criticised for her lack of transparency. If that happened to you or me, we'd be charged with bloody theft. You know, one law for them. While we're on the subject, an ex-Labour peer, Lord Nazir Ahmed, is being charged with assaulting a boy and a girl, both aged 13. Married man. Labour peer. How dare he? Is that Islamophobic? Don't think so. Is there any reason why they shouldn't become Islamophobic with all that behaviour? Probably. But anyway, onwards and upwards. Nazir Ahmed. There's a little subject close to my heart, which I think really has quite important pointers. Disabled toilets. Now I use disabled toilets because my legs are so bad and I'm fed up walking up and down stairs. So I use them. And surprisingly, being disabled, or perhaps only slightly disabled compared to wheelchair users, I sometimes have to sit on the pot. And you know, these toilets, with all the rigmarole and all the bars and all the lifting devices and alarms and everything else, don't have coat hooks. Now, not one has a coat hook. Unbelievable, isn't it? Talk about inconsideration. I'm going to write to the association on that one. Well, ladies, the Daily Mail health supplements at it again. Do you go to the gym? Because if you go at least once a week, you're 10 times more likely to have more sexual partners than a lady who doesn't go to the gym. Well, I must be missing something, because when I go for my physio, I don't see anything that's mild attraction at all, aimed at me anyway. Probably just getting on a bit too much now. Anyway, and it turns out that heterosexual women have a greater sex need, as do gay men. Well, that's a surprise. You've only got to walk into a gent's toilet and you could pick one up. But anyway, that's another story. Anyway, keep training, ladies. And get yourself a little title, Gym Bunny. Heard it all now. Creeped over the 10 minutes again. I was going to do a little story on my dad's beliefs about men with rosy cheeks. And I'll have to save that for another time. But if you know anybody with rosy cheeks, be very careful. Especially if you're a child. Anyway, off for Guinness. Night all.